Our first reading is from Job 38, 1 through 7, and 34 through 31. Then God answered Job out of the whirlwind. Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up your loins like a man. I will question you, and you shall declare to me. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me if you have understanding. Who determines its measurements? Surely you know. Or who stretched the line upon it? On what were its bases sunk, or who laid its cornerstone? When the morning stars sang together and all the heavens being shouted for joy? Can you lift up your voice to the clouds so that a flood of waters may cover you? Can you send forth lightnings so that you may go and say to you, here we are? Who has put wisdom in the inward parts or given understanding to the mind? Who has the wisdom to number the clouds, or who will tilt the water skins of the heavens, when the dust runs into a mass and the clouds cling together? Can you hurt the prey for the lion, or satisfy the appetite of young lions, when they crouch in their dens or lie in wait in their covert? What provides for the raven its prey, when its young ones cry to God and wander about for lack of food? The second reading is Psalms 104, 1 through 9, 24, and 35c. Blessed God, O my soul, my God, you are very great. You are clothed with honor and majesty, wrapped in light as with a garment. You stretch out the heavens like a tent. You sent the beams of your chambers on the waters. You make the clouds your chariot. You ride on the wings of the wind. You make the winds your messenger, fire and flame your ministers. You set the earth on its foundations so that it shall never be shaken. You cover it with the deep as with a garment. The waters stood above the mountains. At your rebuke they flee. At the sounds of your thunder they take to flight. They rose up to the mountains, ran down to the valleys, to the place that you appointed for them. You set a boundary that they may not pass, so that they might not again cover the earth. O God, how manifold are your works. In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures. Praise God. Hebrews 5, 1 through 10. I hope my voice hangs out. I was screaming a little bit yesterday, so hang on. At the football game, not at other situations. Okay. Every high priest chosen from among mortals is put in charge of things pertaining to God on their behalf, to offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. He is able to deal gently with the ignorant and wayward, since he himself is subject to weakness. And because of this, he must offer sacrifice for his own sins as well as for those of the people. And one does not presume to take this honor, but take it only when called by God, just as Aaron was. So also Christ did not glorify himself in becoming a high priest, but was appointed by the one who said to him, You are my son, today I have begotten you. As he says also in another place, You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. In the days of his flesh, Jesus offered up prayers and supplications with loud cries and tears to that one who was able to save him from death, and he was heard because of his reverent submission. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered, and having been made perfect, he became the source of the ages, salvation for all who obey him, having been designated by God a high priest according to the order of Melchizedek. And final reading is Mark 10:35 through 45. James and John, the son of Zebedee, came forward to him and said to him, Teacher, we want you to do for us whatever we ask of you. And he said to them, What is it you want me to do for you? And they said to him, Grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. But Jesus said to them, You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or be baptized with the baptism that I am baptized with? They replied, We are able. Then Jesus said to them, The cup that I drink you will drink, and with the baptism with which I am baptized you will be baptized. But to sit at my right hand or at my left is not mine to grant, but it is for those for whom it has been prepared. When the 10 heard this, they began to be angry with James and John. So Jesus called them and said to them, You know that among the Gentiles, those whom they recognize as their rulers lord it over them, and their great ones are tyrants over them. But it is not so among you. But whoever wishes to become great among you must be your servant. And whoever wishes to be first among you must be slave of all. For the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom of many. Forgot it all.
Our next hymn is number 435. What a friend we have in Jesus. Take it to the Lord in prayer. It's a beautiful sentiment from a beautiful favorite old hymn. And it's a sentiment that I find in today's scriptures because we all have been there, haven't we? We all have been caught up in our questions, in our sorrows, in our griefs, and we wonder, what are we going to do about it? We wonder, why me? It is a common problem of the human condition. And this is the second passage from Job we've read this month. You maybe remember the first passage because it's a bit shocking. We have God and Satan up in heaven, and they're debating the virtue of a good man. Job, the patience of the sufferings of Job. You've heard that phrase, I'm sure. Job is a righteous man, and Satan says, yeah, he's only righteous because God, give everything to him. You've given him a wonderful life. You have children, family, he has wealth, he has the respect of community and friends. Take that away from him. Take that away from him, and he will stop being righteous. He will curse you, God. And the first of 3 bargains are made. His health is taken away from him. Then his children, his family, his wealth, and he is left poor and destitute, sick and infirm. And then we meet 3 friends who sit with him. And they say, surely, Job, you must have done something to deserve this. You must have done something to deserve this. And Job says, no. I have remained righteous. I have done everything the law, everything a righteous man should do. I have remained faithful to God. I have cared for the poor. I have cared for the sick. I have kept the law. I do not participate in adultery. I do not participate in idolatry. I have done everything. And then Elihu does his final argument against Job, and he says, you got it all wrong, Job. There is something you must do to become a better person, or why else would God be punishing you? Why else? And then we have today's beautiful passage that Nancy read. It is a beautiful passage. God comes and appears in a wonderful, incredible epiphany. A whirlwind, a tornado appears. And God speaks out of that whirlwind. And God says, who are you to question me? I was there to build the earth. I was there to feed the ravens. I was there to feed the lions. I am there to count the raindrops falling from heaven. Who are you to question me? And it's easy at that point to say, Job lacks faith. The charge is being made against Job to ask, why am I suffering? But the conversation is actually aimed at Elihu. The conversation is actually aimed at the person who charges Job with lacks of faith. Because Elihu is saying, Job, there must be something you have done wrong. And then God appears. At that moment, after the charge has been made against Job, that God appears. And God says to these 3 friends, you don't understand. You do not understand who I am. I am bigger than your imagination of what justice is. I am bigger than your imagination of how Job should be treated. I am utterly transcendent of any image you can present. You don't understand. And Job's questioning, in spite of all his suffering, in fact, because of all his suffering, is the appropriate questions to be asking. What don't I understand? What do I have yet to figure out? Too often in the Christian church, too often among Christians, we think we know exactly what God is. Too often we look at our creeds and we say, this is all we need to know. And we look out to somebody else and we say, that person is not a good Christian. That person is poor because that person has not worked hard enough. That person is suffering because that person did something wrong. We want God to look just like us. We want God to benefit us. We go to visit the sick person in the hospital, the nursing home. We look out at the people suffering with COVID right now, and we say, they aren't Christian enough. They aren't faithful enough. Or the flip side of it is, if because I am faithful, because I'm good, I can't possibly suffer. God will take care of me. The fact of the matter is, because we are mortal, and none of us here is not mortal. Raise your hand if you can live forever. The day will come when we suffer. That day's inevitable. We know it. We know it. We all have to die. And oftentimes that dying is mixed with suffering, some disease, some terrible calamity. We all have been to a funeral for some special person who we look up to as a saint, as a martyr. And we know that day will come for each and every one of us. And that's the story of Job in a nutshell. Job is a saintly man, and the people around him, his friends, say, you aren't saintly enough. You're not good enough. And God must surely punish the wicked. That's not the way it is. God is not about punishing. God is about being present in our suffering. God utterly transcends us. But by utterly transcending us, we can be assured of the promise that God is with us. If God is everywhere, that means God's right here. God is also right here with us. The sons of Zebedee, James and John, they say, we want to be part of your glory. Put us on the left, put us on the right of you in your glory. That way we can be assured that we have our place in your dominion. Because Jesus, you're awfully small. Jesus, you're awfully small. You're only here with a certain number of people. So if I'm on your right and I'm on your left, I'll be here. The other 10 disciples, we can leave them out, but just as long as we're here. And we tend to lord that over other people. We say it's our church, our congregation, our denomination, people who share my theology. But that's not the limit of it. If we make it just about us, then we ought to stop and think, what did I do wrong? What did I have to deal with? What is my mistakes? Am I truly part of God's dominion? We start to worry about those questions we have. We start to worry about the doubts. We start to wonder if I'm being punished for those limits that each one of us has to face as part of our lives. God is not punishing us for our failures. God is there feeding the ravens. God is there feeding the lions. God is present in those beautiful, transcendent moments. And then God is there when we're sitting in the ashes. God is there when we have tears streaming down our faces. And it's only by being in both the big and the small that we will discover that Jesus is present. Jesus is warning James and John. He's saying, you stand on my left, you stand on my right. I am going to suffer like all humanity suffers. What you are asking for is to be hung on a cross. You are asking for the worst thing you can ask for. But God is going to recognize that what I'm doing is being a servant to every person out there. And that way you can know God suffers with you. So you be a servant to all the people out there. You be a servant to the other 10 disciples. You be a servant to the world. Reach out with kindness, with love. Because I'm about to face suffering. And of course we know what happens next in the story. Jesus knows our suffering. Jesus offers his presence right there with us. The story of Job is so beautiful because we recognize Job's feelings. The story of Jesus is so beautiful because Jesus recognizes our feelings. And Jesus is saying, I have mercy and love for you even in the midst of that. Amen. Let's rise and turn to hymn number 493. This is a story of suffering also. I'm sure you've heard it. A man from Chicago lost his family and wrote this beautiful hymn.